Sarah's Stampin' Retreat. Today we're going to be making 5 cards using this Simply Succulent stamp set from Stampin' Up and the coordinating dies. So within the die set you get some of the dies that cut out some of the shapes from the stamp set. You also get some extra pieces like these. You get some pieces to cut out some sentiments, and you also get this lovely background die here, so we'll be using this quite a bit today as well. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do today is, you can see I've got the large background die cut out here on a piece of Whisper White paper, and I'm actually just going to use it like a stencil. And I'm going to bring in my blending brushes, and the colours that I'm going to use today are Pear Pizzazz, Old Olive and Rich Raspberry. So I have cut this down to the size that I want it already, but I think I made a bit of a mistake there. I think that if I was doing this again, then I would leave this cut into the paper, because you'll see, if you can see that this actually only cuts out the middle bit, it doesn't cut the outer edge, so you can make it to whatever size you want. So I cut it down ready for the video, but I think if I was doing this again, then I would cut it down after I've done this, and then I could tape it to the paper. But we'll have a little go without it taped to the paper and see how we get on. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my Pear Pizzazz, because that's my lightest ink, and I'm just going to kind of brush that all over. And what I might do is, now that I've got a bit down that side, I might just tape this down so that it doesn't move. That looks okay there, so I'm just going to pop that down there with a bit of washi tape. And then I'm going to carry on with my blending. And I think I might do a bit the other side, and then I can tape that down as well. Take some of the Old Olive ink, and I'm just going to go, and I'm kind of going to centre that in the middle of some of the cacti. Now I'm going to just give us a little bit of depth of colour. And the reason that I'm kind of keeping it in place with that tape is that I want to not only use the top piece of this, but I want to use the bottom piece as well. So it's kind of going to act like a stencil as well. So then I'm just going to take another one of my blending brushes, and I'm going to take my Rich Raspberry, and I'm just going to brush a little bit of that just around every here and there. I think that's enough with that. That's actually come on a bit darker than I'd originally thought. I'm just going to go in with a bit more of the Pear Pizzazz. Then I'm just going to lift this up, and you can see we've got a nice impression below with that as well. So I'm really happy with how that's turned out. So I've now got this piece that I can use and this piece. So I'm just going to take the tape off here. So then I'm going to use the Kind People Are My Kind of People. And I'm just going to use some Pear Pizzazz cardstock and my Versamark ink, just to heat emboss that sentiment onto some Pear Pizzazz. So let's just stamp that there. And then I'm going to pour over my embossing powder. This is just the white Stampin' Emboss powder. And then I'm just going to grab my heat tool, I'm going to put it on setting 2 and I'm going to melt the embossing powder. And then I'm just going to use this die from the die set just to cut it out. And I've got this cute stitch greeting to go on my card. So then I'm just going to glue this onto my card blank. And the other thing that you could do, which I would probably do next time, is to put some adhesive sheet on the back of your paper before, on the back of your cardstock before you pop it through your die cutting machine, because then you wouldn't have to worry about being really careful with your glue. And then I've just got 3 strips of cardstock, all about 1/4 of an inch thick. One in Pear Pizzazz, one in Old Olive and one in Rich Raspberry, so reflecting the colours that we've used for our inks. And I'm just going to glue those in this corner. To snip the ends off at the back. And then I'm going to grab some of my Stampin' Dimensionals, it's just double-sided foam pads, and I'm going to pop this on top. And then I'm just going to echo that stripe at the top, but just with one piece of the Pear Pizzazz cardstock. I'm just deciding here whether I want it in this corner or in this corner. And I think I'm going to go in this corner. So there's that completed card. So then for my next card, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to use one of my stitched rectangles. And I'm going to cut this piece out with my stitched rectangle. I'm actually centering it on here because I think I might actually like to use this as a frame on a different card. So you can see I've got this frame left here that I can use for something else. But to finish off this card, I'm just going to use some more of this white cardstock, and I'm going to layer this stitched rectangle and the one that's the next one up together, because I want to create a nice white frame to go round my piece that we've cut out. So I want to make sure that they're nice and evenly spaced before I take them down. And if you watch my videos regularly, you'll know I use these stitched rectangles a lot. I'd really recommend them because you get a lot of different sizes in the pack, and they're really good for smaller ones for sentiments, bigger ones for frames and for cutting out large pieces, for making apertures in your cards. They're really useful for a lot of different things. And it's nice as well because they are stitched on the inside and on the outside, so you can kind of get a frame or an aperture, and they look really nice. So then you can see, because of the way that the rectangle's cut, I've actually got stitching on both the inside and the outside edges of my frame, and then I've got this piece that I can use on a different card as well. So I made that frame, and I'll show you what I was going to do, and then I'll show you what I decided to do in the end. So this is our piece. So I was going to put that in a white frame on the green card, but I thought that maybe looked a little bit wishy-washy. So what I've actually decided to do is I've cut the same frame from Old Olive card, and I'm going to put it on the white card blank. But I thought I'd show you both because obviously everyone's taste is different. So I just wanted to show you, because you might prefer this one. So I've got a piece of the Old Olive cardstock here, and I'm going to do some heat embossing again. This time I'm going with You Make the Ordinary Extraordinary. I'm still going to use my white embossing powder and reverse mark ink. I'm not too worried about getting it exactly straight because we're going to die cut it afterwards. And then I'm going to use the coordinating die, which is this one, to cut it out. Then here I've got some of our foam strips. I'm just going to pop those around the outside of the frame. And they're actually just the right width for lifting this frame up. So I'm just going to glue this on here. This is just an A6 card blank. So that is 8 1/4 by 5 7/8 inches, scored and folded in half. So I'm just going to pop this around here. And then I'm going to pop some of these bits on the back. And the reason I'm using these instead of normal dimensionals for the sentiment is just so that it's the same height as the frame, because our normal dimensionals aren't quite as deep as the strips. And then I've got some of our elegant faceted gems, and I'm just going to pop a few of those around just to kind of add that little bit of sparkle. So the next card we're going to make, I'm going to use a grey and white colour palette. So I've got a basic white A6 card blank, then I've matted that with a piece of smoky slate that is 1/4 inch smaller, and I've run that through our subtle embossing folder, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. It gives you this nice subtle texture to it. And then I've got 3 of these cacti that I have cut out with the dies. Now I've got a scrap of basic white cardstock, and I'm going to take the plant pot stamp, and then I'm going to use my basic grey ink just to stamp 3 plant pots. And then I'm just going to take my smoky slate stamping blends, and I'm just going to colour in these stripes. And I'm just going to alternate them just to add a little bit of texture. So I've just used the light one, and I'm going to use the dark one. I'm going to do that for all 3. I'm just going to add a little bit of this just by those marks that are on the side as well. Now I'm just going to cut those all out with the coordinating die. So I'm going to go for a bit of white embossing on this card as well, this time onto basic grey cardstock. And this time I'm going to use this thanks. And then once again I'm going to cut it out with the coordinating die. So I actually decided that I wanted a bit of a basic grey frame round here, so I cut a basic grey matte 1/4 inch smaller than my card front. Then I just cut down this piece that we already had by 1/8 inch on each side, so that we just get this small frame. And then I just want to see where I want to place my pieces. So I want these bits to look like shelves. So I have one at the bottom as well. So I think I'm going to stick this down, and then I'm going to decide on the placement of my thanks at the end. onto some little shelves. So I'm going to put one of those at the bottom. And I'm just going to glue this on behind my plant pot so that I can get a nice placement. I'm going to do that with all of them. And then I'm just going to grab my dimensionals. Then I can put that one on here. And let's just make that one a bit shorter, I think. I'm just going to decide where I want my sentiment. So I'm just going to pop a few dimensionals on the back of that as well. And then we can pop this here. And then that's cards completed too. So then for this next card, I've got a Pear Pizzazz card blank, and I'm just going to stamp all over it with Pear Pizzazz ink. So it's just going to be tone on tone. Then I'm going to fill some of the gaps in with this smaller one here. Then I'm going to use basic grey ink to stamp each of those stamps that we've just used on a piece of basic white cardstock. And then I'm also going to stamp one of our plant pots as well. And then I've got my old olive, my rich raspberry and my cinnamon cider stamping blends to colour them with. So I'm going to start with the dark old olive, and I'm just going to go around all the kind of dark bits on the canvas. So just like where the leaves overlap and in the centre. Now I'm going to go over with the light old olive. Now I'm just going to take my light rich raspberry and I'm just going to add a little bit of colour just to the ends. And those of you that watch me regularly will know that I use my blends a lot, but I did actually make a card the other week with this same succulent stamp set, and I used watercolour techniques to colour it, so if you want to check that out, that will be on my video list. And then I'm just going to use the cinnamon cider one just to do the pot. So I'm just using some of the darker one along the edges, and then I'll use the lighter one to go into the middle. And I'm just going to add extra layers around the edges just to kind of blend that into the middle. And then I'm just going to use the dark one just to add a bit of detail around here. You'll notice I've not been that careful about colouring around the edges, and that is because I'm going to actually fussy cut these rather than using the dies to cut them. So as you saw earlier, we've got dies that go with all of these images, but I just want a fussy cut look for this one because the dies leave that edge on them. So the other thing you can do that's not strictly necessary, but I like to do it to neaten up the edges, so when you fussy cut something, is just to go round it with a Stampin' Up marker that matches the outline of your image. So in this case, I'm just going round with a basic grey marker. I'm just going to go through it around all of the images just like this. And you always want to go with your pen from the back, so that if it slips, then you mark the back of your image, not the front. So then I've used my Stitch So Sweetly dies to cut this white piece. So the Stitch So Sweetly dies, you get a selection of these layering scallop dies, and you also get these shapes here. So I use those a lot, and I just want to layer these up on here, and that will go on my card front. So I like to lay everything out before I stick it down, just so that if I want to make any changes, then I can do it before it's all stuck. I think I'm happy with that. I think I'm going to put thanks up here. So I'm going to grab the thanks stamp, and I'm going to grab my old olive ink. So I'm just going to put that at the top here. And then I'm going to stick these down at the bottom. Now I'm just going to pop a dimensional onto the back of here. And then I can pop that on there. And then I'm going to pop dimensionals on the back of here too. I want to add a few more of these clear drops onto this one as well. So that's that card finished. Now for our final card, you can see I cut this out, and I actually cut it out for the card that we made earlier, but when I was trimming it, I made a mistake when I was trimming. I suddenly thought it would make a really nice kind of layer over a mat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it to this piece of smoky slate cardstock. So for this card, I've got a 5x5 inch basic white card blank. Then I've got a 4 3/4 inch square smoky slate piece. Then this piece measures 3.5 inches, and this piece measures 3 1/4 inches. So I'm just going to glue this onto the piece that measures 3 1/4 inches. And if I'd have known I was going to do this before I cut it out, then I would definitely have put some adhesive sheet on the back, because that would be way easier than trying to cover this in glue. So I'm going to pop the link to the adhesive sheets in the description below with all of the other things that we've used, because I really would recommend using the adhesive sheets for these really fine bits, because they're a pain to glue. So I'm going to trim this off around here. I really love that you get this really big background die in with this set of dies, because it makes the whole thing really versatile. Then I'm going to just stamp a pot in basic grey ink, just like we did on one of our earlier cards. So I think pretty much if you have got all the stuff to make the card that we made earlier, you've got all the stuff to make this one too. So I'm then just colouring this exactly the same as we did earlier with the smoky slate stamping blends. And so I'm just using the light one alternately with the darker one. And I think because it's such a simple shape, I'm actually going to cut this one out rather than using the die. I think I love having dies that coordinate with my stamps, but I think some cards lend themselves more to fussy cutting rather than die cutting, because with the die cutting you do tend to get that white edge around the outside, and some the white edge looks really nice on, and the cut is obviously cleaner when you die cut. And then I'm just going to heat emboss the thanks on here. Then I'm just going to heat set this. So I've just cut that down into a strip. So now I'm just going to glue all my layers together. I'm just going to glue this to the back of our pot again, like I did on the other card. And then I can pop some dimensionals onto the back. And then I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of there as well. Then there's that card completed too. So here are all the cards that we've made today. I really hope that you've enjoyed our session. If you did, I'd appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also click subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video online. All of the products that we've used in today's video are linked in the description below, and you'll also find a host code there. If you pop the host code into your basket before you check out, then I'll send you a free gift after the end of the month. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hope to see you again soon.